Hello, this is UZREPORT.NEWS. I'm Barnona Zarzoda. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's visit to Russia, the accession to the Eurasian Economic Union, and others on agenda of a press conference. Belgium hosted Holiday Fair 2020. Dutch city of Delft saw a presentation of the energy potential of Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan has filed an appeal for annulment of the arbitral tribunal for the International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. The claim was made by a group of Turkish investors. The tribunal has ruled on the claim of Güneş Tekstil, another businessman, filed in October last year. The arbitration court ordered Uzbekistan to pay $40 million to Turkish investors who invested in the Turquoise Mall for the confiscation of property. Turquoise Mall was forced to close its doors in Tashkent in 2011 as Uzbek authorities had revealed numerous violations of the legislation. In 2013, Vahid Güneş, the head of Turquoise, and representatives of Güneş Tekstil and a group of other investments filed a lawsuit demanding Uzbekistan to compensate the losses. U.S. State Secretary Michael Pompeo said that in his opinion, Uzbekistan cannot combat the threat of coronavirus. In his opinion, such countries like Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan do not have necessary infrastructure to counter global threats. Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan are countries with close borders with China, according to Pompeo. Meanwhile, the distance between Uzbekistan and China exceeds 4,000 kilometers. At that, Pompeo mentioned about investments to be channeled in the region. First Deputy Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan Ilhom Ni'matov was asked to comment on Pompeo's statement about Uzbekistan's inability to resist coronavirus during a press conference organized yesterday. Let's have a look at what he said.
The Chinese government is doing everything possible to localize the epidemic. 579 people were brought to Uzbekistan on their own flights, and the embassy provided assistance to more than 2,000 citizens of Uzbekistan through third countries. Today we continue this work. From very beginning, the foreign ministry and the consulate of the country are doing everything possible to help our citizens.
The agenda of yesterday's conference also included President Shavkat Mirziyoyev's visit to Russia, the accession to the Eurasian Economic Union, and others. Here are some details.
Summing up the results of the past year, First Deputy Foreign Minister underlined plans for the near future. The Foreign Ministry has put forward three important tasks. The first is to attract foreign investments. The second is to increase the export of domestic products. And the third is to raise the number of tourists. Many projects have been developed over the past years. The diplomatic missions have developed 256 projects with a total cost exceeding $5 billion. The utilization of these resources definitely need time, with the results to be revealed throughout 2020-2022. According to Ni'matov, huge preparations are underway in the country to chair the CIS Heads of State meeting. In total, 69 different events are planned, 39 of which will be held in Uzbekistan. As soon as he finished with numbers, Russian journalists asked about the schedule of the upcoming visit of President Mirziyoyev to Russia. Without mentioning the exact date, Ni'matov said that the visit will be organized during the second half of June, since this issue should be thoroughly considered and preparations should be done. Another journalist recalled President's address at Turkey Council Summit, which was made in Russian language. Uzbekistan became a member of the Turkic Council for the first time, and it is not surprising that Mirziyoyev spoke in Russian. This doesn't contradict the regulations of the institution. However, the country pays special attention to the Uzbek language. Most organizations already conduct business correspondence in Uzbek. The Uzbek language is very beautiful. Perhaps in the near future, we will be able to hear addresses in Uzbek as well. Uzbekistan's position regarding the accession to the WTO and the Eurasian Economic Union has been a hot topic over the past couple of months, and the next question was about this. Uzbekistan is currently a member of about 120 international organizations, including financial institutions. Before joining each organization, the pros and cons were taken into account, and only after that, a final decision was made. Regarding the Eurasian Economic Union and the WTO, the word choice is undue here. Negotiations are currently underway to join both organizations. The decision will be made only after we see guarantees to protect the interests of Uzbekistan. The decision must first meet the requirements and interests of the population. This issue will also be carefully worked out by the parliament.
Indian ambassador to Uzbekistan Santosh Jha met with the Tashkent mayor Jahangir Artakhojayev and asked the Uzbek mayor to provide assistance in the opening of the Gandhi Memorial. Another his request was about the allocation of land for the construction of a Buddhist temple in Tashkent. Last week, the city administration had agreed to provide a land plot to Indian companies to build a hospital, university, water park, and a number of other facilities. The total cost of this project exceeds $1 billion. Parliament, as people's legitimate representative and the voice of the articulating their concerns, plays an important role in strengthening democratic institutions and human development. Sadyk Safoyev, first deputy chairman of the Senate of Uzbekistan, spoke about the role and functions of the new parliament.
New parliament will be fundamentally different from the previous one. To begin with, this will be a professional parliament and more demanding towards other public authorities. Members of parliament will work hard to improve legislation in order to achieve the efficiency in making directly applicable laws. Sadyk Safoyev has also emphasized that the developed national parliament is an important aspect for the promotion of democracy in Uzbekistan. It was also noted that the high level of public trust in government is important, as it speaks to the quality of the relationship that exists between citizens and the government. After all, the parliament's role is to represent the citizens and be the voice for articulating their concerns and expectations.
Holiday Fair 2020, the largest tourist exhibition, was underway in Exhibition Center Brussels Expo in the Belgian capital of Brussels. The Embassy of Uzbekistan, together with the travel company Silk Voyage, attended this event.
The stand of the Uzbek delegation was decorated in a traditional style, using handicraft products. The delegates also presented documentaries produced by TV5 Monde, Euronews and the State Tourism Committee, which tell about the rich historical, cultural and architectural heritage of the Uzbek people, unique architectural sites of the Republic and folk handicrafts. Visitors of the fair were told that new types of travel have been introduced in recent years. For example, ecotourism, geotourism, pilgrimage tourism, extreme medical and cultural destinations, as well as rafting and fishing. This process takes into account the characteristics and capabilities of each region of the country. Another advantage is the simplification of visa procedures. Representatives of European companies noted that over the past 2-3 years, there has been a positive trend of significant growth in sales of tourist packages to Uzbekistan. In particular, Belgian tourists are interested in visiting Karakalpakstan, Surkhandarya and Namangan regions, along with the traditionally popular Tashkent, Samarkand, Bukhara and Khiva. According to the organizers, this event was attended by more than 800 national and international tourism organizations, major travel companies and airlines from more than 70 countries.
President's address, 3 years of effectiveness of the action strategy and priorities for 2020. This was the theme of the international forum held in Tashkent. Among guests was Helena Fraser, who had mentioned the liberalization processes in the country.
Eldor Tulyakov, executive director of the center, having opened the forum, mentioned the stable economic growth of Uzbekistan. Helena Fraser, UN resident coordinator for the Republic of Uzbekistan, congratulated the Strategy Development Center on its 3rd anniversary.
First of all, I would like to say happy birthday to the Development Strategy Center, 3 years. But even more importantly, it's 3 years since the start of implementation of the Action Strategy 2017-2021. And I've been in Uzbekistan almost throughout this period. I arrived a few months after the adoption of the Action Strategy. And the transformation has truly been remarkable. Obviously, the economic transformation is something that is most well known, particularly in the international community, the economic liberalization. But I would say from a United Nations perspective, the transformation in terms of the approach to addressing fundamental challenges in the area of rule of law, in the area of engaging between government and people, listening to people, beginning to open up the space for civil society. These are truly important steps forward to creating an enabling environment for the economic reforms to ensure prosperity not only for those who are leading businesses, but for ordinary people.
Fatima Madrahimova, the head of the department at the Development Center, talked about the liberalization of the currency market. The main focus of the forum was on liberalization of the currency market and reducing the types of taxes from 13 to 9. The social sphere has also undergone some positive change. In 2019, 6.7 million tourists visited Uzbekistan. As for the reforms in education, the coverage of preschool education comprised 52%. Last year, 4 presidential and 3 art schools were commissioned.
On February 14, the Central Bank of Uzbekistan held meeting with the representatives of the International Finance Corporation. The parties discussed issues of regulating the activities of payment system operators and payment organizations, digitalizing banking services, and providing certain banking services through the networks of banking agents in accordance with the requirements of the law of the Republic of Uzbekistan on payments and payment services. The International Finance Corporation expressed its readiness to cooperate and involve international experts. A presentation of the energy potential of Uzbekistan and the briefing on the upcoming first Tashkent International Investment Forum were held in the Dutch city of Delft. Representatives of the largest international oil and gas companies such as Shell and KPO and a number of large Dutch industrial companies were present at the event.
The event was held in partnership with the Kazakh Embassy in the Netherlands and the IRO, the Association of Dutch Suppliers in the Offshore Energy Industry. While opening the event, Sander Vergrossen, the Association IRO Managing Director, noted that Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan are the drivers of economic growth for the entire Central Asian region. According to the speakers, by 2025, Uzbekistan plans to direct investments in the development of hydropower in the amount of $2.7 billion. This money will be spent on the implementation of 18 new projects and the modernization of 14 existing enterprises. At the same time, emphasis will be placed on the development of solar energy, which has potential equivalent to 51 billion tons of oil, as well as wind power with potential equivalent to 360 million tons of oil. The issue of development of nuclear energy in Uzbekistan was also raised. Reportedly, the construction of nuclear power plant will result in the production of additional 2.4 gigawatt of electricity, and annual savings of up to 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas will be ensured. The nuclear power plant will contribute to the economic and social development of the region. Every dollar spent on the construction and operation of power plant will attract an average of $5 to the Uzbek economy, and the production of a large number of materials and services will be localized. In addition, over 8,000 new jobs will be created during the construction of the nuclear power plant, and some 2,500 jobs during the operation period, and greenhouse gas emissions into the atmosphere will be reduced. Special attention was given to the upcoming Tashkent International Forum, which is to be held in March 2020. The forum will bring together more than 1,500 senior government officials, international experts, heads of international organizations, financial institutions, large companies, banks, and leading media from around the world.
126 road accidents were registered in Uzbekistan from 1st to 11 February. 33 of them were fatal, the press service of the Ministry of Internal Affairs reported. As a result of the accident, 41 people were killed and 136 received injuries of various degrees. 38 cases occurred because of the pedestrians who crossed the streets in the wrong places. 13 cases happened due to the driver's negligence. 12 cases were because of speeding.
The United States has reached a week-long truce agreement with the Taliban that could lead to U.S. troop withdrawal from Afghanistan, according to a senior administration official on Friday. The 7-day reduction of violence agreement would take effect very soon, the official said, and it would cover the entire country of Afghanistan, including Afghan forces. The U.S. military would also monitor violence levels to verify whether or not the Taliban was honoring its commitments. And if the week-long truce is successful, then talks would move into the next phase of negotiations involving all parties. The announcement comes after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Defense Secretary Mark Esper met with Afghan President Ashraf Ghani during the Munich Security Forum in Germany on Friday. And it also comes after prolonged negotiations in the Qatari capital Doha between the U.S. and the Taliban. There are about 13,000 U.S. troops as well as thousands of other NATO personnel in Afghanistan, nearly 2 decades after the U.S.-led coalition invaded Afghanistan following the September 11th al-Qaeda attacks. The United States is aiming to cut that number down to about 9,000 troops.
Google is reportedly in talks with select publishers to pay for their news content. The Wall Street Journal reported Friday that most of the publishers are outside the U.S., including some in France and Europe, and that the talks center around Google paying licensing fees for content that would be packaged in a news product. Google's vice president of news on Friday responded to the report by releasing a statement, saying the company is in talks with its partners and looking at more ways to expand its ongoing work with publishers. While talks are in the early stage, according to the Journal, and it's not yet clear whether agreements will be reached, such a deal would mark a shift in the search giant's relationship with the news media. While Google sends traffic to news websites by featuring their stories on its feed, it doesn't pay publishers a licensing fee for the content that appears. The tech industry has been blamed for contributing to a decline in revenues at traditional news organizations, but there are signs Silicon Valley is looking to rectify that. Last year, Facebook announced it will pay news media for content and, for the first time, put all professional news articles in a dedicated place on its app. And Apple launched Apple News Plus, a paid subscription service in partnership with major news organizations.
The week on Wall Street came to a close Friday with markets mostly hugging the flat line. Investors were reluctant to make any big bets ahead of a long holiday weekend, but the S&P 500 and NASDAQ crept up to another record closing high. Santosh Rao, head of research at Manhattan Venture Partners, believes these market highs are masking the real investor fears that are out there over the coronavirus.
One of the big fears is that we don't know how bad the coronavirus effects are. Is it going to be beyond China, the impact? So we don't know that. At this point, every time it looks like it's been contained, we get more news that it's not. So I think that's what's causing some confusion there. And that could be one of the reasons why the bond market is doing so well, because people are saying, you know what, we don't want to take the risk.
A Reuters poll of economists predicts the world's second biggest economy will slow to its weakest quarterly growth since the financial crisis over a decade ago. And that's not investors' only concern. Data released Friday showed U.S. retail sales rose 0.3% in January as expected, but clothing store sales suffered their worst decline in 11 years, and total sales for December were downwardly revised. The data could be a sign consumers are running out of gas, which would be a blow to an economy already coping with anemic business investment and a struggling factory sector. In a separate report, industrial production dropped again in February. But when it comes to individual stocks, at least one shined through the economic dark clouds. Shares of chipmaker NVIDIA soared to an all-time high Friday after a bright first-quarter outlook eclipsed a warning the company will take a coronavirus-related financial hit.
This was our last report. Thanks for watching and goodbye.